and she came to me, and that was her indirectly asking for help. And I think it's because she sees how I've grown over these last 4 years. And I think that's what your situation is as well. Your
Yeah.
parents see what you are doing and have done, and they're like, holy cow, like Eric knows what he's doing here.
Welcome to Empowered Homefront Podcast, where we talk about health, wealth, and relationships. And let's not forget about the most important one, and that is faith. Because I believe that we all have been lied to, and we're going to skill stack our way all the way to success and bring you on the journey with us. I know I did interrupt you, but like the reason is I've had this conversation with so many other men about their wives. And me and you had it the other day for the first time. Mm-hmm. And you was asking me the exact same questions. And I shared with you some of these stories. And the grass is only green where you water it. If that is true, then you can't put so much pressure on your wife to do the things that you want whenever she wasn't doing those things before you got married.
Mm-hmm.
And same for her, right? Hey, and I think you actually said your therapist asked you this. It's like, well, did you know that she had all this, going on before you got married? Well, like you accepted it, right? And that's kind of a thing. The issue is like me and Lori we're high school sweethearts, right? Like we started dating my junior year of high school and been together ever since. And we've had so many freaking challenges, right? And at that time, who we are, like, dude, she was on a path to be a school teacher, right? She's got her bachelor's in education, hasn't made her a single dollar, right? And that was just a jab at college because it's worthless. But the point is like, well, then I've got a college degree too, like associates of some BS that hasn't made me a dollar either. And like I went to tech school and then joined the Air Force and do all these things. But like we got married at such a young age, and this is where I'm going with this. All right. So we got married at such a young age, and the only guidance we had was the people we knew, which is always your issue. It's just the people we knew is, my mom and dad, her family, right? Other friends, all these things. Whenever I made the decision to join the Air Force, huge argument because she had all of her family tell her, no, don't let him do that. You're going to leave us. You're never coming back, which was true. But anyway, she came back and she wasn't supportive. And she told me no. And I was just like, no, I would not have this life. I would not be held down. I would not do this. I would not live in this little town. I want more from my life. And like, dude, I got super mad and I punched the wall, broke my hand. Last and only time I ever punched the wall. Like I learned that lesson, but also I learned another lesson, right? Which is like how important it is to have somebody that supports you. And no matter what, she also learned that lesson during that time. But it took us another 10 years to actually understand how to execute on that lesson. Because I got plenty more stories where I wanted to do something, our family chirp, 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 all in our ear and telling us, no, you can't do that. It's going to be the death of you and all this stuff. And, looking back on it, dude, like, stop listening to your family. Like, unless you want their life, unless they have the life that you want, why would you listen to them? Go out and find you a mentor that has a skill that you want. Go out and find you a hero that you can look up to, and do that, right? Go do what you want to do. And the biggest issue we have is those people who are closest to us. And the reason I say that is because with a husband and wife, it took us a really long time to stop sharing our dirty laundry with my parents, her family, stuff like that. And actually, she actually did really good. Like she never like badmouthed me to her family because her family already hated me anyway. So she didn't have to. But like for my parents, like we both like conceded in them. We or confided in them, right? Like we both reached out to my parents, was just like, hey, like we're going through this. We don't know what to do. Can you help us? And this is me on the phone, you know, having a private conversation. This is her on the phone having a private conversation, looking up to them, right? Asking for that help. But at the same time, unless we wanted the life that they have, why would we take advice from them?
And
Right?
you don't have the bandwidth to take everything in from them too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, bandwidth was a little bit different because what I'm talking about right now is like influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like the influence of the people that you're taking advice from means so much, right? So, as you learn and you develop as husband and wife and you get better at communicating, the problems that you have will always be your problems. It's just you get better at handling them and you get better at communicating together. And then eventually you're like, oh, yeah, like we got this figured out. And you'll never be to that point, right? You'll never be, oh, we got this figured out. Because what'll happen is you learn skills and you learn how to do things together. And then because you learn those things, you go out and you go to another phase of life. And that next phase of life requires more input and more effort from both parties. But then you go to the next phase of life. More input, more effort from both parties, and then you go to the next phase of life, right? That's the game of life. It's to go up, not to go down.
I also think it's fun. You mentioned this on the phone the other day, and it was you mentioned it here, and you said it's a harsh truth, and you hate saying it, but sometimes you're done learning from your parents. Like you have nothing else to learn from them.
Yeah, and that should be the goal as soon as possible.
But I will say this is I have gone to my dad before and been like, Dad, how do you have a house? How do you have a beach house? How do you have a boat? How do you have brand new cars? How did you just build a three door barn at the beach house? Like all this. And he was like, I'm not stupid with my money anymore and I work hard for it.
Yeah,
Like lessons like that, I still go to him for, you know,
yeah,
and stuff like that. And what I want to get to is I think it's super fun as well playing the game of that marriage, playing the game of the business and life, marriage, stuff like that. Is I think it's fun to figure out how to do things with Erica. Like, hey, we have a problem here. Like, let's not put our dirty laundry on our parents. Like, for them to figure out and help us out and do. Like, her and I love figuring out problems. Like, especially with being brand new parents, especially with being brand new marriage. Like, I went to my parents once and I proposed the problem. I said, Dad, how do I handle this? And you know what he told me? He goes,
what?
doesn't sound like there's anything wrong with her. It sounds like there's something wrong with you. Why don't you figure it out?
Yeah,
And I went, damn. And that was the lesson he taught me, because I was brand new at being a husband. So, like, who's the number one guy that I know that I saw go through serious trials and tribulations with my mother when I was a
yeah,
kid? And now they're happily married 27 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's something on that, man, and like with the messages of not learning, because like I don't want to make sure that that's not what I'm saying, because like my mom and dad, dude, love them to death. I admire my mom and dad. They have a great life. They came from nothing and they built, a really nice life. Um, and they accomplished a lot. The issue is what phase of life did they stop in,
Mm.
right? So Empowered Homefront has taught me things, right, that I focus on with Lori, that my mom and dad reaches out and confides in me now. And it's not because it's not because like I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't really ever thought like why they reach out, but like
Maybe
you
can I help?
reaching out, huh?
Can I help you try to figure it out? Because I
Yeah.
think I've had the same thing. So my mom has seen how I've grown since I put down the bottle, and I've recovered from my addiction, and she'll reach out to me, and so she's not asking for my help, but she'll reach out and be like, "Hey, this happened with your little brother." Like my
Yeah.
little brother wanted to be a state cop, and then eventually get into like special investigation stuff like that. Like we go real high in the tiers of
Yeah.
investigative. And his first step was being a cop. Well, he got there and he heard a speech from somebody, and the last thing the guy said was, "After hearing this, if you don't want to be here, raise your hand. You can leave. You're not. Nothing's going to happen." My little brother raised his hand and said, "I don't want to be here." And he
Yeah.
made the decision that day, whatever that guy said. And my mom was torn apart. Like, hey, he didn't come tell us about his decision first. Like, he just made it and left. Like, he didn't let us talk to him. And I was like, Mom, maybe he didn't have anything that he needed to hear from you guys. Like, this is his first major decision as an adult. And I'm trying to like calm her down. And I go, if anything, you should respect him for his decision he made, because this is the first decision he's made as an adult without your guys' input, without
Yeah.
coming to you guys. And then she texted me back. This was just all through texting. And she said, "Hey, I really appreciate that. I really needed to hear that. Thank you for helping me out."
Yeah.
And like
That
that
was
was my
great
mom.
insight.
And that was my mom coming to me
Yeah.
indirectly, because my mom's a very proud person. And she came to me, and that was her indirectly asking for help. And I think it's because she sees how I've grown over these last 4 years. And I think that's what your situation is as well. Your
Yeah.
parents see what you are doing and have done, and they're like, holy cow, like Eric knows what he's doing here.
Yeah, thanks. You did help me figure that out. Cause what I was trying not to do is talk about like success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like talk about money and all this other stuff. Like that's not reason they're reaching out to me. It is because of what you just said, right? It's growth. And like, well, I had this talk with Kaylee, and this right here is talking about like, hey, how to pick a mentor, how to pick an influencer and a hero to confide in, and like wisdom. So my dad, old fashioned as he is, like he talks about, hey, wisdom comes with age, right? And I really reflected on that, especially since I got to start explaining what that means to my kids. And anyway, I had to talk with Kaylee and well, all the kids about this. And it's like, well, let's define what wisdom is, right? Wisdom is a skill, right? It's that you have acquired and earned the skills in order to get something done, right? That's what wisdom actually is. Like you have the experience to get something done. And then let's look at, okay, is it true that age is the thing that determines wisdom? And, I used to, what?
I think we should wrap this up and keep this for another episode, because this is going to be a good one.
Well,
I
hey, let
have
me just get this out. I'll say it again. Cause
okay.
like, cause like the age, man. So what I tell her is like, okay, imagine two people. One man is 80 years old and he's worked one job, right? He's worked the same job his entire life. He has no kids. He has no wife, but he's 80 years old and he's done the exact same thing his entire life. He didn't travel. He worked a good life. He goes to church. He does things, right? That's it. That's his life. You got another man who's 22 years old. He has a wife. He has two kids, and he's already had 5 jobs. Who's wiser?
Probably the guy. I know where you're getting with this. Wisdom comes with experience. Wisdom does not come with age. That's immediately what I thought. I swear to God, it's immediately what I thought of whenever you started talking about this.
Yes.
So,
And to their points, like with this whole, podcast, like the whole message, man, is like you got to really pick and choose what you're putting your time into, right? Because you mentioned something earlier. It's just like, okay, well, I spend my time with my kid. That's great. He can grow up in 18 years. He's leaving the house whether you want him to or not. I mean, he's supposed to, but like
yeah.
either way, he's legally able to leave the house, and like you look back and you're like, oh yeah, like, hey, my dad sat down on the floor with me and played with me every day for like 4 hours. And then when I got old enough to play video games, he sat on the couch and we played video games every day. And he went to work and he came home and we ate dinner, we did this stuff. And my dad, he played baseball with me every day. Right? Those are all great things, but who's this kid's dad? What did his dad do? What
Yeah.
experience, what wisdom did his dad earn? Right? Wisdom is earned. And that's the part where, hey, what is your dad accomplishing? Right? What has he done? Did he get a great career that made his life comfortable and then all of a sudden life stopped? It's like statistically talking about like whenever people graduate high school and they don't go to college, like that was the last time they read a book. Or when they graduate college and then they move on to their life, like the last time they read a book was in college. It's like, dude, like that's because like learning self-help books is like demonized, like it's put out to be something bad, and it's not. It's literally growth. That is wisdom.
Yeah. I had to look something up, but getting back to like teaching lessons versus just spending time, quality over quantity.
Yeah.
This is how funny it is. How I know that you've taught your kids, just even if some people don't even think it's an applicable skill or something they didn't know. I had to look up the name of it, but when your kid knows how to use a miter saw and I don't know how to use one, like
Yeah.
when we were we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But we're renovating the current house that you're in right now, and you're like, yeah, Kevin, go cut the 45-degree angle on this molding or whatever we were doing at the time. We were building the kitchen, and I was like, I don't. And then like 6 months later, like I see videos of your kids using the miter saw.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what it was called. I had to Google. I said, "What is a 45-degree saw cutter?" Like something. Like it was like, "Oh, miter saw."
Right? Like, dude, like I would be demonized as a terrible dad. Unsafe. You let your kids use something that they can chop their hand off, or they can lose a finger. It's like, yeah, right. Except you missed all the countless hours that they watched me do it. And every time they watched me do it, I preached safety. I preached, hey, keep your hands away from the saw blade. Hey, what happens when your hand gets in there? It's not like they walked up to the saw and I'm like, here, chop it. It's those hours, like shooting a gun. Dude, my kids, they go outside and they shoot the BB guns, no parental supervision, right?
Mm-hmm.
None. But it's because whenever they first started shooting the BB gun, I went out there and I said, hey, don't shoot towards cars, don't shoot towards houses, don't shoot up in the air. When people walk by, cars drive by, you stop. I said this a couple of times. I watched them. I paid attention. Hey, safety, finger off the trigger, right? All these things. And I'm teaching them all this. And then I stood behind the glass. I literally came inside the house, left them out there by themselves, and then I would spy on them out the window. They never even knew I was watching. And then whenever they did something wrong, I would say, hey, what did we talk about? Oh, you're right. Right. And it's just like, dude, like, parents, like raise your freaking kids, like don't there's a new term. Like there was helicopter parents where like you're hovering all over them. And then I just heard another one the other day. It's called lawnmower parents where you like roll over all their problems. It's just like, no, dude, like my job as a parent is to create as many problems as I can for my kid so they solve it. Not so I solve it, so they solve it. Right. And it's just like, well, 2 days ago, dude, we had to go and Kaylee wanted to get flyers for Easter to put in like the cross. So I drove all three of them up to Harris Teeter and we stopped and I got my phone out and got my credit card out and I'm like, here you go. I was like, don't spend more than $10 on the flyers, She's like,
Mm-hmm.
what? I was like, go. I was like, make sure you hold your brother's hands and look for cars as you walk traffic, And dude, they go inside of Harris Teeter's all by themselves. I sit in the car and then I peek and I watch them cross the road. They did everything just like I taught them the 1,000 times that I've been doing it. Now, Kaylee's just turned 12. 9 and 7 for ages, right? They're walking through Harris Teeters all by themselves. I give it like 5 minutes. I get out of the car. I walk into Harris Teeters and I watch from afar. They don't even know I'm in there, right? I watch them. Kaylee is holding Tyler's hand. Tyler is holding Jackson's hand. And they're all walking. They never let go of each other's hands. They go down the candy aisle, right? Because I let them get a treat too, right? And anyway, I walk down and behind the aisles and they're getting ice cream. And I watch them get ice cream, right? Kaylee's helping them. Hey, what do y'all want? Right? Like, do the whole thing, dude. And then I watch them go and check out. And when they check out, I'm like, hey, y'all did a really good job. And they're like, you've been here the whole time? I'm like, well, not the whole time. Like, y'all did a really good job. I'm proud of y'all.